I have a very specific summer TBR. And the reason is I will be attending Worldcon over at Glasgow. And because a lot of different authors will be there, I really want to read as many books from different authors as physically possible. So I have molded this TBR, looked at who's attending, and tried really hard to read as many first books from different authors as I can over the next month and a half. Just under a month and a half. Probably closer to a month. So I'm going to avoid mood reading, avoid going with my normal TBR, and just try these new authors so I can interact with as many as possible. So that's the plan. These are the books. First of all, probably still my biggest sin is Joe Abercrombie, The Blade itself. This series, I know I'm going to love. I've said this before, is probably one of the series that sounds most like it's my taste that I've just not read yet. And so many people love it. But he's going to be at Worldcon. This is an absolute priority. I am going to finish off Assassin's Quest first, like I said. Finish Farseer, then move on to First Law. However, that's going to happen. And I'm excited for it. I'm very excited for it. Question though. Would you prefer a spoiler-filled video like I've been doing with Farseer? Or would you like a spoiler-free video for First Law? I'd be interested to hear what you think. Now that we have had a couple videos that are spoiler filled, is that something you're interested in and that you're enjoying, or would you prefer spoiler free for First Law? Grim dark with humor, very character led. I'm very excited for it. I did mention this in the last TBR video that if I had time I would start First Law, but I've not finished Farseer yet, so I've not started it. But this next sequence of months, I will have started it. In fact, I do plan on starting this pretty soon. And I do have this really nice edition, but I'll probably listen to the audiobook because everybody says the audiobooks are amazing. And I love audiobooks. And I'll probably read it faster if it has an audiobook. Because right now I've been listening to way more audiobooks than I have been doing physical reading. Which you can probably see in my wrap-up. A lot of them were through audio. Silver Blood Promise, Tainted Cup. What else did I read? You get the idea. A lot of audiobooks recently. Another thing I really wanted to focus on was indie authors, because there will be a lot of indie authors present. So because of that, I will be reading Ascendant, which is a Dragon Rider progression fantasy trilogy. No, it's not a trilogy. There's 3 books out, but there's planned to be 4. And they're absolutely stunning covers. I've also heard that the audiobooks are really good for Ascendant, so I may jump between the physical and the audiobook as well for this, or I might just read it physically since a lot of the other reads are audiobook. But Ascendant, really excited to jump into this one. I'm hoping it'll be quite a fast read because I heard it's quite... I've heard some people say it's YA and some people say it's not YA, so I assume it's going to be a fairly easy, fast read. So I'm really looking forward to checking this one out. Plus, Dragon Rider Fantasy. This follows Holt Cook, who saves this dragon from being killed by other dragons, because in this world, dragons do not care for the weak, and they kill off their offspring if they are seen as lesser. And Holt saves this dragon who is blind, and then they become paired. So it's a very unlikely underdog type story. Chosen one trope. Holt defies the order, rescues a doomed egg, and vows to protect the blind dragon within. I think this will just be a fun, wholesome Chosen One fantasy story. And I've been reading a lot of fantasy mysteries and such recently, so just going back to the classic type of roots, I think will be a ton of fun. The other thing is, these are a lot of book ones. I do continue to finish this series eventually, but the main focus here is just mass amount of different series. So I will continue on with this if I really enjoy it, but for now, Ascendant is just the main goal. Same with the other series. Just read the first books and then come back to the sequels after I've gotten through a lot of these first books. Plus, Michael R. Miller is a Scottish author. A Scottish indie fantasy author. My brethren. And he will be at FantasyCon, and he was very kind enough to send me this book, so I'm really looking forward to reading it and meeting him and maybe getting a little signature if I can bring enough books through. Next up, what have kind of become the trio of dragon fantasy in the self-pub space. We have Ryan Cahill with his Of Blood and Fire or Bound in the Broken series. We have Michael R. Miller with his Songs of Chaos books. We also have Philip C. Quantrell with the Echo Saga, which is such a cool name, the Echo Saga, starting with Rise of the Ranger. Together they have run promotions and such called The Day of the Dragon, which is really cool. So I've read Ryan's work before, I will read Michael's and hopefully Philip's as well. And then I've ticked off the trio. The trio have been complete. But this is a large, epic, classic fantasy tale. It spans over 9 books, but also multiple series. He's currently working on a prequel series, starting with A Time of Dragons, Once There Were Heroes. This is the first book in this prequel series. But I think I'm going to start with the original Echo Saga, which is a complete 9-book series. I'll be honest, I don't know much about this. I was sold when I heard it was a large, classic fantasy epic story. Anything that spans 9 books, you know, will have a large scale story, which is always exciting for me. I love large scale stories. I know Patrick has read them and really enjoys them, or at least he's read most of them. I don't know if he's finished it or not. The covers are stunning, which again is another selling point for me. You will see that across my TBRs. There's dragons. I think there's elves and dwarfs. I think this is a very classical, taking all the classic fantasy. Yes, there is an elf. There's elves. This has to be a dwarf, right? He looks like a dwarf. This is book 7. I think there are dwarfs. There are definitely orcs. But even the names, the Knights of Eredor, that's such a cool fantasy name. So I can't wait to check this one out. Okay, this one is technically cheating on the premise of this TBR already, but this is a sequel. Into the Rift is the sequel to Flames of Mira. However, Flames of Mira, if you've not been following the channel, mentioned it once or twice. I love Flames of Mira. It's such a good book, so I'm very excited to check this out. This just arrived yesterday, but as soon as I finish some of my current reads, this is up next. And Clay Harmon will be at Worldcon. However, I've already read the first book, so it does break the rule. But I need to read this. I'm really excited for this. It's one of my most anticipated reads of the year. So it's a priority. It's slipping into the TBR no matter what. I've talked about it a lot, but in case you are new to the channel, Flames of Mira is book 1. This is the paperback. This is what the normal cover usually looks like. This follows a man who is flesh bound to a magnate, which means he has to do everything this magnate tells him to. So this creates some really interesting character dynamics between the cast of characters. The world building and the magic system is super cool. They live underground close to lava because the surface of the planet is uninhabitably cold. So you can imagine there's lots of interesting travel sequences and creatures and flora and fauna because they live in caves. Also, some elements with the world building in this first book were really interesting. It's all spoiler filled, so I can't go into it. But going into Ig, who is the flesh-bound main character, his past, and learning more about how he got the abilities he has, it just has lots of question marks. This giant... No, I'm not going to say. I'm not going to spoil it. It's really cool. That whole sequence was really interesting and bizarre. So I'm really looking forward to learning more about the world and the lore. And it has a chemical-based magic system, not unlike Mistborn. And Mistborn, one of my favorite books, the books that got me into adult fantasy. So I love it. It's a great time. Cannot wait to get onto the sequel, Into the Rift. Very soon, very soon. I just need to not sleep. There's just too many good books out that I want to read. It's not good. But also, it's great, but it's not good. But also, it's great. Also, in this period, I am going on a little break, a little holiday. Shouldn't really affect anything. Probably won't be noticed at all on social media. However, because I'm away and I want to just completely chill out, I always resort back to some favorites, some series that I'm familiar with, and authors that I know will be good reads. And for that very reason, I'm going to read The Bands of Mourning. Now, one of my goals this year for the yearly TBR was to complete the rest of the Cosmere, so I'm up to date for Stormlight 5. So this includes finishing off Era 2 of Mistborn. So while this does a wee bit sneak into the TBR because it's not the main focus with the Worldcon, it is still moving towards an aim of my yearly TBR. And I think this is a good time just to make sure that I'm still chipping away at some Sanderson books so I'm up to date for Stormlight 5. And I'm really looking forward to this one. My friend Michael has been badgering me about reading this for so long, and I keep on putting it on TBRs and saying, I should really read this soon. And I get messages every single time saying, how have you not read that yet? So I do plan to read this while I'm on a little break, because it's familiar, love Brandon Sanderson. Consistently, it's just always a good time reading one of his books. I don't think I'll get to the Lost Metal. I do think that'll probably be in the next TBR video, but I do want to read The Bands of Mourning in this one. I love Era 2, but I think I've been reading them very broken up. I read Alloy of Loss so long ago, and then Shadows of Self months and months later, and now it's months and months until Bands of Mourning. But because of that, I do feel like I'm missing out on just the consistency of reading them back to back. I wish I had time to reread these, but I don't. But I love Wax and Wayne. I love these characters. I do really enjoy Era 2. And I have heard that the further you get into Era 2, the more Cosmere tie-ins there are, particularly with the Lost Metal. I remember when that first released and all the reviews came out, it was a lot to do with the implications to the grander Cosmere. And I do also need to read Mistborn: A Secret History, which is a novella. I think it takes place between Bands of Mourning and the Lost Metal. However, I think I've been spoiled. I kind of know what happens in the novella, so I could probably read it before Bands of Mourning. So it's distinctly possible that that will sneak into this TBR as well, because I think it is just 80 odd pages. But it's been a wee while since I've read a Sanderson book. I'm looking forward to just getting back into that sort of comforting setting, easygoing prose, characters and world I'm familiar with. It's always a good time, and it just does feel like a comfort read. I do also have some books from friends I really want to read, including A Princess of Aldir. This is a prequel novella. It is a sci-fi book by Brian Wilson. Originally, I was going to read the first book, Forsaken Planet, first, but I think I will probably read the prequel novella, because then I can get to it sooner. And I've also heard that it's a really good way to enter the world. The early reviews have been great, so I will probably read that very soon as well. But this is a pretty big epic scale sci-fi story. It's going to be multiple books. There's already 2 out. This is a prequel novella that takes place on a different planet. I think Brian said there was 11 planets? Something crazy like that. So I'm really looking forward to delving into some epic sci-fi. And I did have the honor of chatting with Brian and also Christopher Navo over on Christopher Navo's channel. And we just kind of chatted about world building and writing in general, and it was a ton of fun. So if you want to see me and Brian and Chris just chat about world building, some fancy and sci-fi, definitely check that out. And I also want to read my other friend Sam Paisley's book, The Elements of Time, which still stands as one of the coolest covers I've ever seen on a fantasy book. Now, this is sci-fantasy. I believe there's urban elements because I think it takes place in our world. I mean, it has a castle in space with a force field, elemental magic, sci-fantasy. It's a chunky book, so it's going to be epic scale. I'm very excited for this one. And I want to go in without too much information, but I do know there's a cosmic war, timeless beings. What more can you want in a fantasy book? And those are kind of the big main reads I want to get to. I may sneak in some other indies as well that are going to Worldcon. I will try my damnedest, but I'm a slow reader. And like I said, I will be on break for a bit. But I'm really excited for all of these books. These all have me really interested. So I think it'll be a good one. I think I'm going to find a lot of favorites in this next quarter of the year. I'm very excited. As for my writing plans, I did say in my wrap-up video that I finished draft 1 of The Black Mantle, so I will be jumping into draft 2, and I'm kind of hoping within this window I will have a couple drafts done and it shipped off to beta readers. And just in case you aren't aware of what beta readers are, it's kind of an early group of readers who review the book and just give me kind of insights of how people read it and if everything makes sense and that if it flows well, character motivations, nothing in the plot seems just doesn't work. And then I take all that feedback and I implement anything that I feel the draft might need before it goes off to a professional editor, and then it'll go to an ARC team, and then we'll get the final release after that. So the main focus is to get several drafts done and get Book 2 out to a beta reader team, which will be interesting when I'm going to be on break and at Worldcon. It'll be a good time and I'll make it work because I'm really happy with how Book 2 is coming along. As for channel plans, I do have a couple really fun video ideas. One in particular, I have 2 new series I want to start. And one I know is definitely going to happen in this next quarter. And I'm really excited. I bought some props for it. I bought some lav mics for it. It will hopefully be in July, if not or August. But oh man, I'm really looking forward to getting this video. It might be the dumbest video I've ever made, but I'm really looking forward to shooting it and getting that out there because I've been wanting to make this video for a year. So I won't spoil it, but there will be one really fun new series video coming out in the next month or so. So let me know in the comments below, what do you plan on reading for the rest of summer? Have you got a set TBR, or are you just going to mood read? And if you do have a set TBR or have an idea, what do you plan on reading? Do you plan on reading any of these? Have you read any of these? What did you think? Let me know in the comments below. And thank you very much for watching. Also, if you're coming to Worldcon, let me know in the comments. It'd be really cool to meet some people there.